Okay, so let me show you how I do my setup. Okay, so this is how I do my setup. I've got the floor unit right here, and then I've got a few cables that come out of it. You have the option to insert your guitar, your instrument, right here. So that's my guitar cable that goes into one of my guitars when I play. Then you have an out. You can do a stereo or a mono out, and that one goes into my little amp, so I can hear myself playing. But I also like to record myself playing for YouTube and for jam sessions online, or even recording. And you can use the floor unit as a sound card directly into your PC. So that cable goes right into my Mac for recording. I used to do it without a floor unit, just with a little recording box over here. But now I can use that for my mic. So that's a lot easier, and I have this extra channel to use for an additional recording if I want. So that's how you can set up your Zoom G5N with either an amp or with direct recording. And of course you can use this amp cable to go into your sound card as well to record your sessions. Okay, so I've created a few of my own patches right here. Some I've downloaded from the library, and some I've entered on my own. So you can see these are the first 4 that are in the bank. These are different from what's in the memory bank on the Zoom G5N factory settings. But if you want to keep the factory settings, you can always go to the last ones. So you see there's a lot of empty ones here at the back. So 197, 198, 199 and 200. And also a lot of extra empty memory banks. And you can start inputting your own sounds into these empty memory banks. So if we click on the last one, number 200, now we're editing number 200, and here we can input our own sounds. As you can see here, the number 200 is empty at the moment. There are no effects in there, no gaps, no amps, and no effects. If we go back to the first few, and I've selected my last effect patch over here, you can see that there are different amp models and different effects in there. Now there are 2 ways of editing your own patches. You can start with one that's in the memory bank and edit it from there. Just click on memory and stomp over here, and then you go into the editing mode, in the stomp box mode. Here you can click on different effects to add them to the effect loop, but you can also start editing all of the different aspects of one particular effect, and even change the effect out for another one. So this is pitch shift, and now it's a mono pitch, and now it's an APS effect. And in the menu of the Zoom G5N you can see all of the effects and amps that you can choose. Now one thing you have to look out for is the order in which the effects take place. Just like with your own pedal board, you want to keep certain effects in front of the chain and other effects at the back of the chain. And it also matters where you put your amp and cabinet in the chain. So here I have a pitch effect and a boost effect before it goes into the amp. And then the amp goes into the cabinet. You always want the amp before the cabinet. And then there's some extra reverb effects that go in the chain after the amp and the cab. I like the way that sounds. But you can also put your delay effects before the amp. So that's an echo effect and a whole reverb. And lastly, there's a pedal volume. So this depicts the order in which the effects are laid out on these different stomp boxes. So if we change this one, the mono pitch, to the pitch shift, you can see that this effect is also changed to the pitch shift one. And now it's back to mono pitch. So you can use one of the memory banks that are pre-installed in the factory settings and change them the way you like it. And when you change an effect, it immediately changes the sound you'll get from the Zoom G5N to your amp, or to the way I do it using the USB to record this directly. Now if we go to an empty patch again, number 200, I have to go out of the memory and stomp box to go back to the viewing mode of the different patches that are in there. And then I go back to the number 200, which is empty, and I press the memory stomp again. Now you can see there are absolutely no effects in any of these places. So this is the first place, and I can select the effect I want by using the up and down arrows. So right now it's a compression. So my first effect is a compression effect, first effect in the chain. Now I can create the next effect right here, rack compression. I don't want more than one compression in one effect loop. Limiter, auto wah, resonance, crybaby, filter, EQs. So there's a lot of different effects you can choose from. And I have a video on all of the different effects and how they sound. So you can take a look at that as well. So these are a few filters. And I added the drive to here. And you can see each effect also has a few settings that you can change. So the tone, overall tone of the compression or the volume output of it. The attack is the slow or fast compression. And the drive also, you can select if it's a boost on or off with this particular drive. You can change the gain, so that's more distortion, the overall tone of it, and the volume output of this one. And now I'll select an amp. So I've got a compression, then a booster drive pedal, and then they'll go straight into an amp. You see there's a lot of choices. So the Mesa Boogie amp, and you can see what type of effect you've chosen here in the brackets. So you can easily see that this abbreviation, this MS450, is in fact an amp. This is a drive pedal, this is a dynamics pedal, a compression. Now after the amp, actually this amp is drains a little bit more power from the overall effects chain, so it takes up 2 spaces. That's why this one is now added to the chain as well. So I can't change this. If I select this amp, then this will also be filled. So it leaves me one less option to fill the complete effects chain. There are some amps that are only 1 space, I think. The Fender Twin Reverb is also 2 spaces. So that's one to watch out for. In the beginning I was wondering, hey, why can't I change this to another effect that I want? And that's because it takes up more memory, so it takes up 2 spaces. But if you want another space, you can go scroll, and then you go to the next space after the Fender Twin Reverb. So we have a few more spaces that we can fill up. So after the amp I want a cabinet. These are all the amps. Here are the cabs. So I've chosen a cab, and this is a particular handy setting, the mic on or off, that simulates if you put a mic in front of the amp or not. So what this is used for is if you use a direct recording like I do right now with the USB output, then you want to make sure that you select mic on. So that's a simulated mic in front of a cab, which is on right now. And that's useful for a more natural sound on direct recordings or direct playing through your computer and your headphones. Now if I'm playing through my little amp that I have with the instrument cable to my little tube Vox, then I want to make sure that I select mic off. So now it doesn't simulate the mic in front of a cab, but it just outputs the regular sound to my amp. So that's a setting to look out for. And also other settings on the cab as well, high, low. Now after the cabinet, I like to set a little reverb. I also like to play with a little reverb to just give it a more of a full sound. And tape echo. You can also set the time, the mix and the tail for the tape echo. Okay, so now I've created my effects chain in an empty patch, and let's see how it sounds. Sounds pretty good. So that's how you manually set a new patch in your Zoom G5N. Now you can also edit your patches in the Zoom Guitar Lab, so I'm going to walk you through that. The first tab is the Effects tab. You can see all the different effects that you can choose from and also how much power they consume. So the gray compression takes up 20%, while the normal compression only takes up 6% power. You sometimes run into the problem that you make a effects loop that's just too large for the Zoom to handle. But the real magic happens here in the patch section. You can see all the patches that I showed you before. So the one we went into was this one, and we can change the name from here and a little description so you can remember what it's for. You can also go into the editor right over here, and here you can see even the last patch we did. It's still called empty, so now I can give it a name like Comp Twin, my compressed Fender Twin reverb, and even add in a little comment, compressed Fender Twin reverb. So now that's in there. So I've got a name and a little description so I can recognize it easily. So that's our last patch, number 200. And you can see the effects that we put in there. Now here you can easily change them, change the order of them to try out different settings, like putting the tape echo in front of the amp. And you can also add different effects from here. So you can go into this one and I can select from one of these categories. So it's much easier to change up your settings right from within the Guitar Lab. It's a little less clicking because you saw how much amps and effects we had to go through to reach the reverb section, for example. So now we can add a little plate reverb over there. You can see it instantly populates over here. And you can also add all of these settings from within the Guitar Lab. So turning that on or off, a little more or less of the mix, the decay, the phase. So you can see we're already at 90% with all of these effects. So we can't add that much more. You can try to add the compression that we saw earlier, the gray comp. Yeah, and then we get a warning that we're over the limit because we'll be at 110%. So we have to remove this one. Delete. Up. Okay, so now we have our new effects chain. And if we look at our Zoom G5N right now, we can see that the name has changed and also that our effects have changed as well. So it is instant. Okay, so this is how you create a patch in the Zoom G5N. Thanks so much for watching, and also check out my video on all of the different effects and how they sound.